Hey boys and girls, Doug Giles here. It's Warriors Rich
and Wildmen. Doug and Crash, what's happening?
Married 35 years, that's all.
I know. I
Margaret.
just saw. Congratulations. Happy anniversary.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen these days.
Yeah, and speaking of marriage, thank you, Big Dog, and I sincerely
Well, yeah,
mean
really.
that.
I mean, it takes two people committed to do it, right? Like, that's impressive. It's awesome, man. It's not a small thing. I know you know that, but congratulations.
I'll take it. Hey, speaking of marriage, so I was going through like Daily Mail. I go there every morning because it's just a whole amalgam of all kinds of stuff that's happening, you know, politics, Hollywood, cultural stuff, church stuff. It's just a mosh pit of information. And I saw this article, man, and I don't know why I laughed just then, but it was about this.
Well, we will let me preface it with this before you jump right into that. We will laugh in this podcast, and we'll kind of make jokes and stuff. It's not because it's a funny topic. It's because it's an uncomfortable topic, and some of it is so shocking that, like, if you don't laugh at some point and even make an inappropriate joke to relieve the tension, it's too heavy to talk about. So, I was thinking about that. But go ahead.
So we've got I've had 35 years of wonderful marriagement. And this dude that we're about to discuss, Richard Spencer, he's a Brit, and he spent 20 years in a living hell marriage with. So you got this beautiful blonde girl. You know, you look
successful.
You look at her pictures, and they're getting married and honeymooning in Thailand, and they've got rose petals, in the shape of a heart on their bed, and she's gorgeous and he's handsome. From a prima facie standpoint, you're like, "Sheesh, this is the perfect couple."
Instagram.
Yeah, but oh how those photographs lie. So Richard Spencer, he suffered abuse, Rich, at the hands of his wife Cherie for 20 flipping years, and last week she was sentenced to 4 years in the pokey. In prison.
4 years in prison, bro.
Yeah, for beating him.
Yep, that's some serious business right there.
So again, you got this petite blonde, and she's beautiful. Mother of 3 little girls, senior manager at the Ministry of Justice. And the judge said this, Rich, that blonde headed chick, and the damage that she doled out to her, poor freaking husband, was the worst case of controlling and coercive behavior the judge in question had ever seen. And her abused husband Richard could only focus on a spot on a piece of furniture and stare at it just to get through their marriage.
Through their abuse, through the actual attacks, he would do that. That's how he survived the attacks.
Yeah,
that's insane, bro.
So it's at the Daily Mail. Just Google Richard Spencer if you want to see the pictures. You ought to see the photographs, man. Do you see the one where he's got his arm up and she just smashed his elbow with a wine bottle, completely bruised all the way down to the armpit. Got a black eye, broken nose, busted lip, and this brings up a lot of stuff because we've been taught in our culture, that it's toxic masculinity, Rich. And it's always the men are bad and the XY chromosomes, dude. They're the ones who dole out the abuse. I think, and I could be wrong. Help me here, Rich. Help me, brother. I could be wrong, but I think this is probably more commonplace than anybody would like to admit, where the female is the nut job and the abuser. Not only did she put him through physical abuse, he didn't even know when. He said usually when she started drinking, boom, brace for it, here it comes. But she would just kind of blow up anywhere, anyhow, in any place. But aside from the physical abuse, she would constantly berate him, call him a little bitch, drop the F-bomb on him, use the C word. And when they had kids, she didn't care whether they were present or not. And just insane emotional and physical abuse.
When it was looking like they were going to get divorced because she wanted 3 kids, once she got the 3 kids, she wanted to get rid of him. And wanted the kids in the house and wanted him to go work and pay her maintenance, every month. And she even threatened him. She said, "I will smash our baby's face into a mirror and cut the baby's face and call the police and tell him you did it." Bro, come on.
Yeah.
That's psychotic.
No, she's double live gonzo. On one occasion, she crapped on the floor and forced him to clean it up.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, and you know, and here's another thing. People might be hearing this saying, "Well, men abuse women." Well, we don't condone any type of abuse, physical abuse in any marriage, family, kids, we don't condone that. We've talked about it. We'll talk about it more. But today we're talking about the part that's talked about least, that is fairly common. And what leads to a man, this is not some wussy guy. He's a tall, somewhat athletic looking guy, you know, he's a very outgoing person. He's not
used to be
like a wuss. Yeah. But she physically beat him and emotionally destroyed him. And he got lost in that. And that can happen, man. That's a real thing. Because what leads up to it? This is some of the stuff we can talk about. What leads up to a man being physically abused and thinking that it's okay, or not even protecting himself? Because here's the deal, Doug. Let's say that a man is married to a woman and the woman attacks the man and the man grabs her wrists, right? Somebody calls the police comes. She'll get arrested, bruises on her wrists, the guy's getting arrested too. You get arrested in the United States for domestic violence, which is anyone who lives with you or has ever lived with you or has ever been an intimate partner. By the way, you get in a fight with one of your kids when they're 40 years old and they don't live in your house 20 years, that's domestic violence. The reason I know that is because if you get charged with domestic violence, if you're found guilty, you can no longer own a firearm. And so, you know, I'm going to go ahead and go with the advice of, if a woman ever attacks you, you should put your hands, first of all, you should run away. Never let anybody that's angry within 10 feet of you. I don't care who they are. No one, male, female, don't let them within 10 feet. If they move within that zone and they're angry, get away. Like literally, physically, turn around and run away. Because if you do not, you're setting yourself up for legal problems coming in the future. If you're ever in public and you're attacked by a woman, and you need to put your hands in the air and let everybody see your hands open and in the air in a defensive passive posture, and you need to yell, "Please don't hit me," as you are making your way out of there, so that every person seeing that knows exactly what happened. You have to, Doug. You have to not only protect yourself physically, but you have to protect yourself legally, right? And so that's real things. I have a guy I'm dealing with right now. His wife is literally insane. And when I say insane, I mean she's had a break with reality legitimately. They're going through a divorce. It's not good. She's trying anything she can. And I told him the other day when he was going to go be at the same place as her, he had to go there. I said, do not let her near you. Do not go near her. Do not engage with her. If she runs at you, be prepared to run away. If she attacks you and you can't get away, throw your hands in the air and start screaming, "Please stop hitting me," and get away as fast as you can. Do not put your hand on her. And that sucks that you have to say that, right? It sucks for people to hear that. It's uncomfortable. Guess what? It sucks for me to have to say that to a man. It sucks that he has to go through that. But, you know, they're in custody stuff and everything else. He can't afford it. He can't afford to have anything even seen to be incorrect. Right? And so we're in this weird situation in our society. You know, if a man beats a woman and a woman defends herself, she's not going to get charged. And I'm not saying that it should be equal in that, because women get killed every year and that kind of stuff. Men too, but primarily women, right? But what's the answer? Well, the answer is you have to take care of yourself, and you have to get out of those kinds of relationships. 20 years, Doug. The guy was in it 20 years.
Yeah, I don't know if I could. One of the reasons why he stuck with her, because she convinced him. It's like, you know, after she had her little episode or her demonic manifestation, whatever you want to call it, she would you know, sit him down and explain, you know, why she went cuckoo, and she was like, "Well, you know, I wouldn't have acted out like that if you wouldn't have done this." And he's like,
right.
"Oh, my bad. You know, I made You stabbed me. Okay, I get it,
Yeah, she put a
Why
freaking
am I
knife
so-
to his throat. She put a
Yeah.
knife to his throat.
Yeah, so what do we so say that somebody's in that kind of abusive marriage, okay? And if people think, why are you talking about women abusing their husbands? It's like, listen, lady,
Well, because
or
it
whoever's
happens.
complaining, whoever's complaining, go back in our archives. I don't know, just a few weeks, and you'll hear us talking to men about treating their wife and their children, like a man of God. And we're actually going to do an upcoming podcast after this one about that very topic. So
Yep.
we've constantly, shored up and exhorted the boys, to be men of God and be protagonists to their family instead of antagonists to their wife and kids. So zip it on why are we talking about women right now? I think, Rich, this is way more frequent, Big Dog, than most people would would like to admit.
Yeah.
Because I think this unhingedness, this entitlement, this, oh, little princess. And if all of a sudden, her knight in shining armor gets his armor, a little, I don't know, tarnished, or it starts to patina and he starts to gray, or, doesn't turn into Rico Suave, or doesn't stay Rico Suave. And the next thing you know, this high-powered, doodly employed hot blonde starts thinking, you know what, I don't really like you anymore, and she starts getting
Right.
abusive. I think that's way common, Big Dog. And she had an
But that
affair
even
with,
happened right when they started. Yeah, she had an affair before they got married.
right. She had an
And the
affair with
abuse
his
started
best
right
friend.
away. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so
You know, I think
guys,
the problem is, Doug, is that people will never just stop doing that, no matter how many times they say they're sorry.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's not reported. So, why do you have to wait 20 years? Because 4 years in prison doesn't line up for 20 years of hell, right?
No.
It took 20 years of this guy's life. That's my thought on that.
Yeah, so if a guy is listening right now and his wife is, bad crap crazy like this chick, and she's doing the verbal stuff to him, and which is kind of like a precursor to fist and bottles and knives, I would imagine. So if they're in this kind of pressure cooker, what would Pastor Rich, put your pastor hat on, Rich?
All right. Got it.
And what would you tell him? Because Pastor Doug, I would tell him, dude, leave now. And like you said, leave with your, and
Yeah.
as much as it drives this Texan crazy, leave with your hands up, and saying farewell, Jezebel. And I would get out, because it's.
Right.
I don't think it's going to get better, man. When you're ramped up to that kind of RPM level, and you're spewing these kind of invectives, unless that chick gets an exorcism, or
Right.
the Holy Spirit sits on her chest for a week and completely internal to external changes her. I don't think I think the flight's going to stay turbulent, and it could get even more bumpy as the
that's right.
days and weeks and years go on.
What I tell people, and what I probably would not have said this when I was a younger pastor, but the person who's doing the damage needs to get into counseling, find a Christian counselor, and start taking active measures to discovering why. It's not, anger management isn't going to get it. Like, you need to calm down. That doesn't get it. What gets it is understanding, why am I like this? Not what are my triggers. It's not anybody's job to tiptoe around your triggers. Nobody cares. There should be nothing there to be triggered. So people are broken. And even this girl grew up in a home of abuse, and she was abused, drunk parents and fighting. And that's not an excuse. In any way is that an excuse. Matter of fact, she should have worked harder.
Yeah.
She's obviously a very well-educated woman. She should have worked harder to find out what her malfunction is. So the person being abused needs to stop taking responsibility for the abuse. The abuser needs to get help. And like you said, Doug, there needs to be serious repentance. It's not, but it's not, okay, but there's no joint blame. It has to be taking full responsibility, right? And I've dealt with this, Doug. I've dealt with this. I prayed for people, helped people, coached people as they went through marriage and counseling, prayed for them and ministered to people, but it has to be serious, because there's an old saying back in the day that once a man starts hitting his wife, he's never going to stop. They tell women you should leave because they'll never stop, right? Well, I believe that statement, except for the Lord, because I believe that God can break that and heal a person and marriages can be saved. 100% I believe that. But other than that, other than the Lord, it's not going to stop. And that doesn't just go for men, it goes for women. And I'll tell you something that I bet you didn't know about me, Doug. I was an abused husband in my first marriage when I was 20 years old. And when I was 20, I was going around fighting, and that's what I did for fun on the weekends. Like I love fighting. But I had this tiny, like maybe 5'1" or 5'2" wife who was a gymnast, a former gymnast, and violent, especially when she was drinking. She punched me in the face numerous times. She hit me with a Bacardi bottle when I was sitting in a chair, almost knocked me unconscious. We were driving in the car one time, and she was drunk, and she turned in the passenger seat, undid her seatbelt, turned all the way sideways. And remember, she's a gymnast, and started kicking me with both feet in my face.
Lovely.
And when I was trying to stay on the road, we were in traffic, I tried to deflect her feet. She just busted the windshield. And then another time,
wow,
we were driving down the road 40 miles an hour. She tried to jump out of the car, Doug. She opened the door and physically tried to jump out. So I grabbed her, and I got her by her hair. But I'm trying to keep this crazy person from jumping out of the car. So I pulled her in my lap. Doug, she bit me in the stomach and touched her teeth on the inside.
Woof.
And it was infected. That thing was nasty for over a month. And the people that I worked with, because I was a young guy, I was 20, right? The people that I worked with, they knew about it. And they're like, dude, why do you do that? And I've always been taught, you don't hit a woman. 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 And so I had no answer. No one told me what to do when a woman hits you and when you're married to them and they're there. You can't get away. And so I had no recourse in my mind, right? And then the last night of our marriage, go ahead.
Did she ever apologize? Like, hey, sorry for kicking out the windshield while you were going 80.
I deserved it. I deserved it.
Okay, so what was the final straw?
Here's the final conclusion. Well, it wasn't a final straw. I wasn't smart enough, right? God delivered me. I still believe that, even years before I was saved.
Did her head spin 360 degrees, and you're like, all right, yeah. I get the biting. I just can't get that, so I'm out.
She hit me with the Bacardi bottle, almost knocked me out. I fell down in front of the door, got back up. I was yelling at her, and she threw a shot glass from the kitchen, and it hit me right in the corner of my eye, and it made my eye bleed. It almost hit me right in my eyeball, man. And I was like, that's it. I've had enough. You want to act like a child?
So did you see any of this stuff prior to your nuptials and stuff? Because he did. Yes. So Richard saw, Cherie's kind of woo-hoo, and I did. He plowed ahead. So why did you plow ahead? Was it the vajayjay? Is it some kind of sexual connection that just tossed your brain out, or what?
And I did not understand the difference between love and infatuation. And I didn't want to be with her, but I didn't want anyone else to be with her. It's a weird thing. We could do a whole show on that, just on that concept, So finally on that night, she was doing all that, and I had enough. And I didn't snap. I wasn't freaked out. I wasn't out of control. I said, if you want to act like a child, I'll treat you like a child. So I got her, bent her over my lap, pulled up her skirt, and I spanked her butt until it was fire engine red, and pushed her off on the floor. And the cops came. And they came storming through the door, I'm standing there with my shirt ripped off, scratches all over me and on my neck, and my eyes bleeding, big knot on my head. And the cop's like, whoa, back up. And I said, okay. So I'm standing there calm. She's freaking out, of course. And he says to me, did you hit her? And I said, well, define hit. He said, you tell me what you did, and I'll tell you if you're going to jail. I said, okay. This is what she did. I bent her over my lap, and I spanked her until her butt was red. I pushed her on the floor. He said, he laughed. He goes, you can't do that, man. He goes, got to turn around. You're under arrest. I said, all right, well, I'm going to get a T-shirt. And I start walking away. Well, this is back in the day, right? This is 34 years ago. So it's not like now. They're like freak out. And the cop's like, you can't do that. Don't go back there. I said, if you're going to shoot me, shoot me. I'm just getting a T-shirt. I don't want to go to jail with no shirt on. He's like, well, hurry up. So I put the shirt on, handcuff me, take me downstairs. And then on the way out the door, he says, arrest the female, book her. And so she got arrested. And so when I went to jail, I had frequent flyer miles, man. They just gave me my badge, took me in for a shower, get to change, go to bed. And she had to get, fingerprinted and mug shots and all that, which I'm sure was traumatizing. And they told me, you're going to go see the judge, but we have to let her get a head start. She's out of jail before you. I was like, a head start? Okay, whatever. So I went to see the judge. Judge said, restraining order against you, blah, blah, blah. I can't see her, contact her, anybody, blah, 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 6 months. And 2 days later, I had divorce papers. And so I was divorced. My divorce was final before the restraining order was up. And that actually rescued me, right? So when I went for my hearing, the judge told me, he said, hey, I'm going to give you 4 months in Yuma County jail. That's a bad jail, bro. This is a border town. He said, I'm going to give you 4 months in Yuma County jail. I almost passed out. I was with my dad, even though I was already over 18. And the judge said, but I'm going to suspend that sentence because of the situation. And if you don't get in trouble, then you don't serve the jail time. And then also I'm going to expunge this from your record. But if you get in trouble, you automatically owe these 4 months. And so I made it. I didn't get in trouble till for a year. I couldn't get in trouble for a year. I didn't get in trouble for a year and 2 days until I got arrested again. I got arrested 2 days after the 1 year for fighting and resisting arrest. But that's a whole different story. But I
Right.
didn't get that on my record. But I'll tell you what, Doug, how do you get in that mindset? I was 20. If I wouldn't have got out of that, who knows if I didn't get arrested and she didn't divorce me, who knows how long I would have stayed in it. I'm not a wuss, But there's a psychological, it's this infatuation of I can't leave. Women get trapped like that. Men get trapped like that. You cannot live in that kind of household. You can't. Obviously, the people that hear this, they know that. But you need to go get counseling. You need to go to a church and get help. You need to get prayer. You got to get out of it. You cannot. It will not fix itself. I promise you, it will never fix itself.
So if you got a dude and his Instagram girlfriend is already, showing telltale signs that she's nuttier than a squirrel turd, what do you tell him?
Go out with all of her friends to punish her. Stay away from her. Don't ever talk to her again. If you're not married to her, bail. If you're married to him, help him get counseling, fight, do what you got to do. Go to church, pray, fast, study together, work it out, set a process of change. If you're not married to him, get the hell out of there. If you're married to him and they won't stop or take responsibility and actively get on it, too bad. People need to know too. There's no secrets. If there's a secret, it's going to keep happening. There has to be accountability.
Yeah, and I like the verse in 1 Corinthians 7 in regards to if the guy's thinking, well, we're married and we made vows before God. Listen, if she's beating you and she's calling you a bitch, dropping the F-bomb on you in the C word in front of your 3 kids, Rich, I don't know, man. I know that there's no cut and dry scripture for it, but I would call that person who's doing the aforementioned, I'd call them an unbeliever. And Paul says pretty clearly in 1 Corinthians 7 that if that unbeliever, doesn't want you around or wants to leave, you're free. God's not called you to bondage in those kind of situations. And say, Rich, that verse wasn't there, Lord forgive me, but I would leave anyway. Even if there was a verse that says, you must stay in that abusive relationship, thus saith the Lord. It's like, Lord, I'm gonna seriously disappoint you right now because I'm not going to live in this freaking hell, and you're just going to have to forgive me and restore me. My bad for not seeing all the incredible telltale signs that this chick is nuts, and I ignored the Holy Spirit. I ignored the advice of my friends, and I blew it. However, I'm now going to remedy it because I'm not going to live in that freaking inferno that she's created any longer. And sorry, kiddos, but you're not going to see your dad that often. But the good thing is that you're not going to see him get verbally abused or physically abused by your full mother. And
Right.
That's what I would do.
No, I'm with you. And the reality is that, Miles Monroe says some interesting things in his book on marriage, divorce, remarriage. He talks about that, and he says, what God has joined together. And he says no one wants to talk about that anymore. We went down and got a license, and we went and got married. But has God put this? That's not a free pass, right? But the reality is, did God put this together? God didn't put my first marriage together. I guarantee you. He didn't have nothing to do with that. He had something to do with getting me out of it. And so, you can't stay in a house like that where somebody's being physically abused. We would never tell a woman to stay. Why would we tell a man to stay? That doesn't make any sense. It's ludicrous. And it's not just the physical abuse. That's bad, but it's what's happening to the psyche of the person. He had already begun to, we won't get into that too much, but he already started to compartmentalize, and he couldn't even relate to any of that emotionally or touch it. Well, that's a survival tactic in psychology, to deal with that kind of trauma and abuse. So that's the beginning of the breaking of a soul. That person is not going to make it. Hopefully, Lord willing, he's going to make it now. But that's damage, bro. That's damage.
So, this is a dour topic, Rich. What should the warrior and wild man, what should the listener do now? Say they're in one of those situations. You got to call somebody. And like I said, it's got to be, got to get an old priest and a young priest and cast those demons out of that chick. But, again, like you said, we wouldn't counsel a woman to stay in that kind of abusive situation. And guys, if you're in that kind of crap sling, save yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
So what else, buddy?
God could change people, but they have to repent first. And that's going to come with accountability. Tough topic today, but I think it's important. And don't let things progress. Nip it in the bud. That's one more thing I would say. Go to warriorsandwildmen.com. Subscribe. It's free. We'll hit you up with a couple emails a week. If you want to help support the ministry, go to the War Chest. It's tax deductible. When you give your gift, we will send you the information on that. And for those that are giving to the War Chest, we appreciate you guys. You guys are making it happen. Warriors and Wildmen, out.